welcome to episode number 3 of the Global Networking Show. We're very excited about this episode, so get your pens and paper ready because you should have a lot of new ideas to take away with you. Andy?
You will indeed. We've been joined this month by 2 of the leading experts in social networking, and we're going to be discussing a range of social networking related topics with them, from why you should bother to network online, how you can find the time to do so, and how you can choose which is the right network for you.
Hopefully technical issues, although they've already started, hopefully technical issues won't get in the way this month at the same way they did last time out. We hope that various issues that were inevitable with our first live show didn't affect your enjoyment and the discussion with both Radu and BJ Shaw.
Before we start the Global Networking Show today, we've got some exciting news for you. You can now stay in touch with the Global Networking Show on our brand new website, which is globalnetworkingshow.com. Catch up with old episodes there, see what's coming up, and also we've asked our guests to provide some additional resources based on what we've talked about on the show and what their expertise is. One of today's guests, Terry Brock, has already provided us with a host of resources, and I'm sure, knowing Terry, he'll continue to do so. Hopefully Bert will join in, and Thomas Power and Radu and BJ, the various other people that we've had on the show over the previous episodes. So visit globalnetworkingshow.com after you've watched this episode, see what we have to offer, and let us have your comments. Ivan and I just want to thank Jarrett Gucci of Dynasty Web Solutions. He's done an excellent job on the website, and we're really pleased with it.
Jarrett's done a number of websites for me, and he's very good. I highly recommend him. So, on to today's show. Social networking is becoming more and more central to businesses of all shapes and sizes across cultures and industries. Many organizations, however, struggle to understand how to use social networking sites effectively. Probably the best known business-focused site is LinkedIn, and we've been joined by one of the world's best known experts on that network. Let me introduce you to Bert Verdung. Bert is an international keynote speaker, a global LinkedIn expert, and a creative life hacker, which I got to find out what that means, Bert. Bert is the co-founder of the #1 LinkedIn training institute in the world, Really Connect, formerly known as Really LinkedIn. And he helps organizations to become more successful by embracing the power of LinkedIn, social selling, and social recruiting. Bert is also the author of the Little LinkedIn for Dummies in Dutch, and the co-author of the bestseller How to Really Use LinkedIn with Jan Vermeeren. Bert has trained hundreds of corporates like IBM, Siemens, Oracle, and thousands of SMEs and freelancers. He's also trained hundreds of BNI members in the Netherlands. Andy?
So while we've got Bert on, who's an expert on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is instantly recognizable to people all across the world, there are so many other social networks out there, and many of them are slipping under the radar. And I think that Clout is perhaps one of those that some people, when you mention it, look at you and they say, well, what's that? There's times when I've received invitations to new social networking sites every single day. And I think it's hard for anyone to sort out which ones they should focus their efforts on. Our second guest believes that, for one thing, clout matters. And that's exactly what his new book boldly states, a book that I've been thoroughly enjoying on the tube in London today. I've met Terry Brock a few times over recent years through our respective memberships of the National Speakers Association in the US, in Terry's case, and the Professional Speaking Association in the UK, in my case. And he's wowed me more than once with new insights into how to engage with social networks in a new way. He really does know his stuff. Terry's been writing about technology, marketing, and the internet since 1995, so he's very well placed to discuss the tremendous growth of social networking in recent years.
And it's great to be with you today.
Don't forget, if you're joining us live, you can participate by asking questions and sharing your own experiences using Twitter and Facebook, hashtag GNetShow, or on the Google Hangout page. We'll do our best to get as many questions during the show as we can. Andy?
Well, we've got a lot to cover, Ivan, so why don't we kick off? And I want to kick off with a question to Terry. Why should any business bother with social networking? you know, isn't it just a diversion from the meter drink of daily business? And can't you tell who's not really got any business because they're spending so much of their time online posting in social networks?
You know, Andy, that is an excellent question, because what we're looking at in business is bottom line results. We want to find out, is it really working, whatever it is. And today, people hang out in social media. That's where businesses need to be. If you were running a business in 1820 and the people hung out at Joe's pub over here at the corner of 4th and Main, and that's where most of your clients were, hey, that's where you want to be. So social media today is where people live. It's where they spend a lot of time. Maybe a little too much, but that's okay. We're learning as we go, kind of getting our sea legs or our social media legs, if you will, to figure out, okay, what's the proper balance? Either extreme. Too little or too much. See, I'm off the screen on both of those. So you're going way off the screen like that. If you do that, then you're making a mistake. But doing the right things in the right way can help you, and that's where clout comes in. Because clout, with a K, K-L-O-U-T, gives you ability to monitor how you're doing with the other networks. Are you spending enough time? Are you spending too much time? Are you doing the right things on there, or are you doing things that really don't matter? And it's a good measuring stick to help you determine what should be done.
So how do you prevent what we might call navel gazing, spending so much time worrying about your social networking activity that actually you've gone the other way and you really are doing nothing for your business?
Yeah, I think it's easy to do that and avoid that navel gazing. It's like, remember, business is about generating a profit. That's what we need to do. Ultimately, all the tweets, all the retweets, all the likes, all the pictures, all the cute little dogs, cats, whatever it is, ultimately has got to translate into business. It's very much like networking has been for years that Ivan, you have talked to us about and helped us so much. It's a matter of, you could spend too much time joining every chamber of commerce in your area and be involved with 15 different chambers of commerce and just swapping cards. And if that's all you did, you're not going to do much business. You need to focus, as Ivan has talked to us and told us so many times so well. You focus where it's quality, rendering value for value, helping others, and making those referrals and connecting. That's what social media is about. We just use it with different tools rather than a handshake and looking at someone face to face. We're now using Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn particularly, and other tools that are out there.
Well, I'd like to hear from Bert in a minute, but before I do, maybe we can start with you, Terry. How do you decide which ones of those social networks to join? Because we're bombarded with, I mean, there's some that are very stable, you know, have a lot of participants, but then there's a lot of new ones coming out. How do people decide?
Yeah, it's very difficult, but I think you do it the same way you would decide, do we get this copy machine in business? Do we buy this telephone? What is going to give the best return? And you do that by experimentation. We know, though, for sure, LinkedIn is unabashedly the place to be for serious business. You don't see a lot of pictures of dogs and cats and things like that on LinkedIn. Facebook, hey, that's what it's for. It's for getting to know people as friends, but business can still be done there. And Twitter, if you do it the right way, can be. I would say that you start and you keep experimenting and tracking, and by using clout, you can track it quantitatively and find out how you're doing.
So Bert, how about for you? I know that you specialize in LinkedIn, but you're active in other social networks as well. How do you recommend that people decide which social networks to get involved with?
Well, that's a good question, Andy. And the number one thing to look at is, what is your goal? What is it that you want to achieve? And a lot of people, they're wasting their time on social media. They go to Facebook, a little bit of Twitter, a little bit of LinkedIn, a little bit of something else. And what happens is that what you see is that a lot of people are just wasting their time because they don't have a clear goal. It's like getting into your car without having anywhere to go. They're just driving around until they run out of gas. That's not the way to go. So start with your goal first, and within your goal, you can come up with who's your target audience and have a look at where your target audience is basically active. What are the networks they're looking into? What are the networks they're using? And like Terry already said, LinkedIn is the #1 place to go to for B2B environment. If you're in a B2B business, then LinkedIn is probably the right platform for you. One of the things that you can also see is that when you're selling, let's say, gadgets or stuff that goes to B2C, then Facebook might be your platform. Twitter might be also very good indeed. But I would say stick where your target audience is going and be available and be online at that platform first.
Can I just add in something to that, Bert? And I'd be interested to get your take on this as well, because I think that people see LinkedIn specific, particularly they say it's a B2B network, and you're very right with that. But I think it's something more than that, and there's a lot that you can do within that network. So I always say we network for one of three reasons: to become better known, better equipped, or better connected. And I think you can decide which social networks to be on and how to engage within them on that basis. So LinkedIn, you can raise your profile by participating in the right groups. You can get market knowledge by asking the right questions in certain groups, or you can become better connected, get referrals by looking through the 3 degrees of connection, separation on LinkedIn. How does that fit with your approach, and do you think there's anything else in there, or do you see it fit that model?
Well, I agree with you in the 3 steps, and there's a lot more to discover. One of the first, let's say, errors or let's say mistakes that people are making is that they look at LinkedIn as a billboard rather as using it as a tool. And what you see is that people sign up to the billboard because they get invited from different people. And so what happens is they say yes, they set up an account, fill out some basic information, and then they leave that where it is. And that's not the best way to approach a platform like LinkedIn. It's also about being proactively, like you said, raising your visibility, also connecting with people, deepen those let's say relationships that you have, being active, but not only being passive and active, also proactive, reaching out to people that might become your customer by asking introductions to people you want to be introduced to. Now, a lot of other things that happens is that a lot of people don't take care of their profile very well. So what happens then is that what happens if people look you up, and in today's, let's say, era of social selling where people are talking to their peers in their networks, is are you working with them or how are you working with, and so the thing is that when they research you, when you come up, when they find out who you are and what your profile looks like, it better looks very good and outstanding. So again, what are the things that you can do and incorporate in your profile that makes you outstanding or standing out any way you like? So that's where a lot of people are missing the key.
We've talked a little bit about this, but do either of you have some suggestions on how people can manage their time a little more effectively? Any specific suggestions? Because I see people who get on social media and something happens to the space-time continuum and an hour goes past and they're like, wow, I just wasted an hour. So are there any specific recommendations you've got to manage your time?
Yeah, Ivan, that is a very important point. Matter of fact, we devote a whole section of our book to that and talk about how to manage this when you don't have time. But the first thing it starts with Peter Drucker told us years ago, set your priorities. Decide what you want to do, and then you clearly do that. You put it together and you say, this is what I want to accomplish. Now, what's the best way to do that? We find that if you do it throughout the day, you often can do very well. We went out doing the research for our book. We went out to Klout's headquarters, and we talked extensively with their top executives, including Joe Fernandez, the co-founder and CEO of Klout. And he uses a little bit of social media throughout the day, so that he doesn't do it all at once, because the world is changing. He'll catch a little bit here, then a little bit there. I'm talking about 5-10 minutes or so, and that works. For some people, they want to do some in the morning, and then some in the afternoon. Experiment and test what's going to be for you. But always bear in mind, the reason you're doing it is for business. This is serious business. It's not just fooling around, and we got to be careful of getting into the political discussions. For most of us that aren't in politics, then that's a black hole that you can get sucked into. It can have all kinds of negatives. Candidate A is great, candidate B is no good. I've already, alienated people real fast. Stay away from that, although it is extraordinarily luring, and the Cassandra song is singing, you're going, yes, yes, I want to get into this. We got to say, no, no. Instead, focus on rendering value. And that's what you do, how you get people to attract. You give them value by answering questions and solving problems that they're concerned with. Make sure that you're generating good quality content in the form of text, video, like we're doing here, audio. It's easy to do. Learn how to do that. And if you don't know how to do it, hey, this is why God invented high school kids. You can find someone that'll help you with that, and you can get it done. And then another thing on the time thing, Ivan, it's very important. Don't try to do it all yourself. There's some things you can get others to do. Get other people to do it. Outsourcing is a huge way to do it. And this is why God invented India. We've got wonderful people that will do all these great things for us that you really shouldn't be doing. And I hear Peter Drucker over there in the background with his thumbs up going, yes, only do those things that you should do. Only that you can do. That's what you should do. You create the content and then let others take care of the implementation.
Terry, let me ask you then.
I couldn't agree with you more, by the way. If you can get other people to do some of it. I mean, I've got a team of people that handles most of my social media, but outsourcing it can be very effective. That's the first thing that I did, was outsource my social media before I brought it in-house. So good suggestion.
Yeah. Well,
I'll hear Bert well in a moment, but sorry, Andy, go ahead.
Sorry, let me ask you a question on this, because I do most of my own social media. I have some scheduled tweets which are done for me, but the majority I do myself. In your book, Terry, you talk a lot about the personality coming through and people dealing with humans and how important that is. I believe that, you know, I schedule tweets every day that are about networking, that share things like this and like my blogs, because a lot of people follow me for that, and they don't want to hear a lot of conversation and a lot of engagement. But at the same time, clout is about engagement. Engagement is the word that comes through your book more than any other, and probably comes through what a lot of us talk about more than any other. So how do you balance the two? Outsourcing the content but engaging with people, and that goes into your point about conversations. Where do you draw the line? So I believe that if you're only about business, then your personality doesn't come through. Even in my talks, people find out I'm a Charlton fan. Charlton is an English football team, you know, what you call soccer, but most people, the rest of the world calls football. And you know, when audiences hear that, I'm almost guaranteed that someone's going to come up to me and commiserate with me and console me after the talk, because, you know, it gives us a level playing field. It gives us something in common to talk about outside just what I've presented in a speech. And I think that's important on social media as well. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on where that balance is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very much, the social media is you connecting with others. And I agree, you use the outsourcing where you can. What we'll do is, for instance, we have people that are working with us, Gina Carr, my co-author, and I, and we have them in the Philippines, in India, in Pakistan, different countries around the world. They help us create the material. They'll go back to, for instance, the legacy material that I've written, and they'll pull a couple of quotes, and they'll put it into a nice picture, and then post that. I'm letting them do those activities. However, this is critical. You personally have to be there to engage and respond to them. It would be like saying, okay, I'm going to join such and such country club, and I'm going to send somebody with my business cards and pass them out saying, oh, Terry's a wonderful guy, you got to get to know him. He's too busy to be here with you, but here's his business card. You know, call him up and you ought to get to know him. No, it just doesn't work. You've got to be there. So use the outsourcing to develop those things that really anyone can do. They can write the text, they can make it look pretty, they can do the editing of your video, your audio, etc. But you be there to respond to them. Say yes, etc. Jack Welch, definitely in business, definitely knows business, started working with Twitter a long time ago. And he said that a big part of it is talking about the Boston Red Sox, because he was a big Boston Red Sox fan, and by doing that, he would be able to connect with people. And you know, in the real world, that's a part of business. People are coming back talking about the game yesterday, what it was like, what happened, and like you said, Andy, you connect with people that way. So you want to make sure that you have the division there. With outsourcing, they do some of the activity that anyone in the world can do, but you must, underline big fonts, must be there to respond to them, to engage with them, and to talk to them.
And we've got
Gary, I would love to respond to the issue of putting up some personal stuff, but first, I'd love to hear Bert's comments about time management, which was the original question.
Yeah, thank you, Ivan. Well, as a life hacker, and as you are probably aware, life hackers is about hacking away frustrations from your life. So it's about gaining more efficiency and getting more productive. So one of the things that we look at is not only outsourcing, which is really, really good, and we're using in our team as well, but again, that personal engagement stays as the #1 priority. But #2 is have a look at some of the things you can automate. For example, in LinkedIn, one of the things you can do is you can save your searches so that LinkedIn is providing you with a weekly update of new people who fit your let's say search criteria, will become your ideal customers, and then you have a look at who can introduce you to those people. And again, it's not only about being smart about outsourcing, but also being smart on automating some of the steps along the way. But keep in mind that it needs to be personal. Have that personal engagement there. If you ask me how much time that I spend on LinkedIn on a daily basis, well, that's about 15 minutes because I have most of the things automated for going proactively out there. When people responding to me, it only takes me a while to respond to it. I have a number of tools that I use on the different platforms, like you said, scheduling tweets and a number of things, and part of my team is doing a lot of that work for me so that I can focus on the things that I want to be doing, is connecting with other people, and that's, again, engaging with other people on social media to build those relationships, and that's so important. That goes without saying almost.
We've had a question through Google Hangouts, and I think it's been answered, but I think it's it's stated in a way that I think underlines the point, and it comes from Mark Williams, and I don't know, Bernard, you may know Mark,
yes,
who also does a lot of work on LinkedIn, and he's just
yeah.
released his first LinkedIn-formed podcast, which I listened to at the weekend and I highly recommend. And Mark asked, if effective social media is about authenticity and engagement, how far can you really go with outsourcing? I probably think we've dug enough into that, and Terry's given a very strong response to that. But Ivan, you wanted to say a little bit about letting the personal side out, so maybe you can build in on what Mark's asked there.
I think the outsourcing can be the things that Terry was talking about, which is excerpts from your material, educational, informational. If all you're doing is sell, people are going to shut it off. I think it's about education, and that you can outsource to people who understand your content. But the personal stuff, I'm amazed at how sometimes something personal I put up gets all this traction. I was sitting in my lake house in Big Bear, and I happened to have a camera next to me, and a bald eagle flew by maybe 20 feet away. I mean, it just kind of hovered right by me. I brought up my camera, took a picture, threw it up on Facebook. Oh my goodness, I wish every one of my posts would get the kind of response that this silly eagle got. Things like that.
You need to hire some bald eagles. Outsource your work to bald eagles.
Because that got more comments than just about anything I posted that week. And so that personal engagement makes a difference. I absolutely believe it.
And I agree. I mean, I at one point, I have split profiles on Facebook because at one point I felt there was too much business stuff there for my personal network and maybe too much personal stuff for my business network. But I find I still put most of my personal stuff on what I would call my business profile. Not my page, but my profile, because I think people engage with the human being and they engage with the personality. Then they're interested in what you have to offer for business. And I do think things come that way round. And that brings us on to another question, I guess, because we've talked about Twitter briefly. We haven't really gone into detail on Twitter, and I think we should perhaps before we finish. We've talked about Clout, we've talked about LinkedIn. We haven't talked about Facebook. And there really are two schools of thought here. Those that avidly believe that you never ever use Facebook for business, and those that think that it is a tool for business. Now, I won't ask which camp you fall into, because I'm guessing we'll probably fall into the same one. So I'm going to ask each of you, and I think I'd like to include Ivan in this, a co-presenter, but I want to pose the question to all three of you. What would you say to someone who says, Facebook is purely social, I don't think it's a tool for business? Terry, do you want to start us off?
I would hope that that person is my competitor, because Facebook definitely is about business. Yes, it's social, but that's the thing. You've got to look at time management. Circling back there, Ivan, what you talked about, the most important thing you can do with your time is connecting with other people, is connecting and engaging with them. That's what you can do, making sure that you're there. And part of that is saying, yeah, how about that team last night? Or what, didn't they have a great game? This is human nature. Or, hey, here's a good picture. And the picture of the bald eagle. Hey, that's nice. But it lets me know you're a human being. And Facebook, it has a part of that. Now, again, keep in mind, this is for business. Don't spend all your time doing nothing but, here's the picture of the bald eagle going by. That is important. You want it there. And by the way, Ivan, that will definitely help your Clout score. When you put that up there, people will see it and they're clicking, they're liking it, retweeting it. That will definitely help your Clout score. And really, when it comes down to it today, we want businesses to be personal. That's why so many of the businesses that are getting it with social media, they're using clout to determine they're doing the right thing, and they are being very personal. It's not just Southwest Airlines here in the United States, but it's Mary at Southwest Airlines or Bob at Southwest Airlines. You're getting to know a real person that helps you when you say, how come my flight is delayed? They come back and say, oh, I just checked, your flight's on its way, it should be there in 20 minutes, and by the way, here's a coupon for an extra drink when you get on board. Something like that. It becomes personal, and that's how we win. So Facebook has a definite place in that, and I would encourage all my competitors to get off Facebook. Don't use it at all.
Very cool, Terry, very cool. So we are using Facebook as well. We are using Facebook in a way to help people, not only on Facebook, but also about LinkedIn. Some people have like a threshold before they take the step to get into LinkedIn, and so one of the things we do is we have a Facebook group where we share also LinkedIn tips and how to get people started. And so from people who are in our, let's say, more personal environment, they turn into LinkedIn as well, and then they become customers and thank us for the way we help them and connect with them. And so you never know who else is coming around the corner. So also Facebook for us is a business tool. It's one of the channels where we see new customers coming in, but also a platform for us to share our knowledge with and to give and receive, as we call it. So to help and build connections with other people. So definitely a yes as a business tool for us as well.
Okay, and for Ivan?
I go where my members are, and I have a lot of members on Facebook. So we're very active on Facebook. Between me and BNI itself, we have over 50,000 followers on Facebook. So very active there. In addition, we're active on LinkedIn, very active on LinkedIn, probably 30 or 40,000 followers there. And we've created our own social network platform called BNI Connect. And the reason I mention that is that it's a place where BNI members can go by themselves. It's a walled garden that nobody gets to play in but BNI members. So people can drop in on the Facebook page and the LinkedIn page to see what BNI members are doing, but you can't on BNI Connect. And so we kind of have a combination of very public sites that anybody can go to and a private site where only BNI members can go to. And I think there's some benefit for the kind of environment I'm in for that as well.
I think that's nice because we've had three very different approaches, but they all say, yeah, Facebook is part of the mix, and that's the key thing. There's something that I would add, and I think it fits in with what Terry was saying, and that is that I use the phrase in sight, in mind, because we're all aware of the phrase out of sight, out of mind, but there's the opposite, and what Facebook gives you is that chance to stay in touch with people that you don't see on a regular basis, particularly when you're working internationally. And I mean, Terry, you and I are a good example because we first met about 3 or 4 years ago at a convention in the UK, but we've actually only ever met virtually since then, I think. But
yeah,
through Facebook, it feels like we know each other better because we see each other's updates, we comment on them, we touch base on them, and it seems like a small thing, but I think it's huge. I think it's a big shift in relationships.
Absolutely.
And Ivan will be very aware of both Girard's law and the Dunbar numbers, two theories that we talked about in our first show, about the numbers of people you can maintain in your network. And both of those theories were devised before social media and before people could stay in touch with a vaster number of people purely by seeing their updates every day. So I think it's shifted how many people we can stay connected to than we ever could before. So it does make a difference.
That's part of the power of social media as well. It helps you to get more connections, but also stay in touch with a lot of people. And yes, it's important to look each other in the eye face to face, but you can use the social media to get more, let's say, extend and build that relationship and also keep in touch longer and better with people because you can inform them in a better way rather than just only relying on face to face or just on email. So that's definitely a yes for me as well, Andy.
I talked to a number of university students. I'm on the board of trustees for a university, and one of the things I tell them is that you live in a great day and age because when you leave your university, you have a mechanism for you to stay in touch with your fellow students that we just didn't have when I graduated from college. And there are so many people that I wish I was able to maintain contact with and did not. I mean, I went to school with one of the deputy directors of the Federal Aviation Administration. I went to school with one of the palace guards, the captain of the palace guard for Saddam Hussein. Now, I'm guessing he's not around much anymore. But listen, it would have been really interesting to stay in touch with that guy, at least until a few years ago. So, you know, college students today have this great advantage of Facebook and LinkedIn, where you can, in fact, stay connected with alumni, and it's a great tool.
Yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, if I can jump in here, one of the things I'd say is really important is the relationships can be really built and then maintained through things like we're using right now, Google plus Hangout. Just think about it. Here, the four of us are gathered on different places. Bert, you're over in Belgium, and you're there in the UK. Ivan, I think you're over in California right now, aren't you?
I'm actually in Austin at a hotel.
Oh, okay, you're in Austin, and I am in Denver. Normally I'm in Orlando, but I'm here at a friend's place. We're connecting right now. We're able to do it. But think about it. We can see each other. It takes communication to a whole new level when you can see someone. You're watching their reaction. Now, is it as good as being there in person? Well, not exactly. But, hey, it's a whole lot better than just mere smudges on a screen with text. We're able to communicate. When I was the chief enterprise blogger for Skype, we used video extensively for our regular conferences. So I would be in Orlando. We'd have someone in London, we had Silicon Valley, and all of us gathering around the virtual conference table were able to get a lot done. So I would say to those of you that are watching this at home right now, think about how you can bring 2 or 3, 4 people like we're doing here. I would say 4 is a good number. You start getting too many more and it's not as effective. But bring those people around where you can have that mastermind group being able to solve a particular problem. Once you get past the, ooh, wow, you know, we're doing this in video. Yes, what's the weather like where you are? Oh, and all those kind of things. You get down to serious business and real serious collaboration. The benefits today are amazing.
I do think, though, Terry, I agree with you that it elevates the communication we can have when we're apart, but I think we have to be very, very careful that social networking and video conferencing aren't, people don't see them as a replacement for face-to-face contact, and I don't see that we can really transition from. I think it'd be sad if we transition from a world where it's predominantly face-to-face to one where it's predominantly online. So I guess I'll throw the question back out, and maybe Bert can come into on this first, and then Terry build on what you were just saying. How do you get the balance right?
Well, getting the balance right is learning every step of the process as you go along. Yes, we've made mistakes, and yes, some were hair-pulling mistakes. I can now show you. But what's going on actually is that it is important to stay in touch with people, to build those relationships, and to keep using different platforms as well. Because what you sometimes see is that people are not only reading about you on, let's say, only on Facebook, they also see what you're doing on Twitter and what it is that you do on LinkedIn. And sometimes people have a favorite social network, but sometimes they come to you at an unexpected angle. I had people staying in touch with me, mainly, for example, on LinkedIn, and then suddenly they responded to me on a Twitter account, and so we connected on Twitter, started following each other as well, and so we got an additional feed from each other. So yeah, there are different ways to stay in touch with people and to learn all along. Sometimes when something goes wrong, when Murphy comes along or something, you know, one of the things that happened to me is that my LinkedIn account got suspended back in 2010. And what happened there is that we just got accredited as the first officially certified LinkedIn training company worldwide by LinkedIn themselves, but they didn't inform some of their team members who were scrutinizing on people's profiles. So as soon as we set it up, certified LinkedIn trainer, they took us our profiles down. We found out that what was going on, and they were all informed, and we got reinstated. So yes, there was a mistake made, but it was not the end of the world, and we, you know, carried on onwards afterwards. So it is important to be transparent, to be open what is going on, and to share that, of course, in the social media as you go along.
And if you have a personal relationship with those people, then they're going to give you a little bit more leeway there as well. They're going to trust you more when things go wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where what we discussed earlier. It's so important to build the relationship. Well, one of the things that works for me very well is that I have on my profiles, I have a happy shopaholic. So of course, being from the country of chocolate, I love and adore chocolate. But what happens is that people send me chocolate from all over the world. People connect with me about having a chat about chocolate first before we talk business. And again, what happens during my keynote sessions or trainings, I get lots of chocolate as a way of people saying thank you to me. They bring it to my sessions and they say, oh, have you tasted this one? There's a new brand around. I get invitations for product tastings. But that's also about building your network and engaging with people first on a personal level and then on a business level. Yeah, indeed. You're right.
I think the face-to-face networking is very important. Obviously, I built my organization on that, but I also believe this. It's not either or; it's both and. If you want to have a successful, a powerful personal network, you need both a good face-to-face network and a social network, online network. Now, maybe someday online networking will replace face-to-face networking, but I think that will happen when we have like Star Wars with holographic images of people all around, and you're actually having a meeting with a holographic image like the Jedi Knights. Now, when we get to that point, I want to be Obi-Wan Kenobi.
You are, yes, Obi-Wan. Yes, indeed. I think we have to have both. You're right. It's not either or. It's both and. I think of what my buddy Corbin Ball said, that you can't share a virtual beer. And I think, there's something to be said. Worldwide, sitting down and doing that. Although, I'll have you know, we have tried. Yes, indeed. On St. Patrick's Day, I make it a point to open some Guinness and have some friends of mine in Ireland, and we both share a virtual Guinness together that way. And so we're doing our part to carry forth a science project on that.
Well, it's not the same, is it? I mean, on the same point, Mark Williams has put another question, going back to our Facebook discussion, but it fits with what Bert was just saying. Because he said, how would you advise someone who wants to feel relaxed and comfortable being themselves he said on Facebook, but we can expand that across social media, wants to be themselves with family and close friends without having to worry about how a business contact may judge them. And I think that sometimes you have to be sensible. If you're going to open up your networks, your social networks, to your business contacts, not just personal friends and family, you have to be sensible, and you have to think about what you're putting what you're putting out there. But at the same time, we're going back to this point about people buy you first, and then you go on to business. People want to talk about chocolate with Bert first, then go on to business, and you find that common ground. So I take the view that I wouldn't want to act in a way that I'd be embarrassed about in business in my personal life. I'm too old for that now, I guess.
Hey, let me tell you, Andy, when we hire people in my organization, we check out their Facebook page.
Yeah.
We take a look at just how wild and crazy they are. So, you like it, don't like it, the reality is what you put up on social media is going to be viewed, and you may or may not cut yourself out of a job by your behavior on social media.
And Terry, you say in the book that a lot of recruiters, I think this is probably more in the States than in Europe at the moment, but it will probably come, but a lot of recruiters are checking clout scores now.
Oh, yeah, they're taking a look at what your clout score is. We talk about it in the book here. Shameless plug for our book here, Clout Matters. Yes, indeed, that we talk about, because the classic story is from Wired Magazine last year. On their cover story, they talked about a person who was applying for a job in marketing. He had outstanding credentials, great experience, went through the process, all the different interviews, came down to one final interview, and they said, oh, by the way, what's your clout score? And he looked out and said, what's the clout score? Not a good question to ask when you're in that position. They looked it up real quick because, by the way, it's public. If you've got a Twitter account, chances are you've got a clout score, and people can easily find it. They pulled it up. Oh, you have a clout score of 34. The person that got the job had a clout score of 68. And I think it goes back to the old saying that what's important is what important people think is important. And when you're in that position of being hired or wanting to be hired, the important person is that potential employer. So pay attention to those kind of activities.
Hey, we're running out of time soon, but there's one question that I'm dying to ask, and I know, Bert, you'd have an answer for this, and Terry, you may. Should people pay? I'm going to change lanes here. Should people pay for premium membership on LinkedIn, and if so, why? I'm really interested in this answer.
Well, very good question, Ivan. And the first answer, or let's say the first part of the answer, is probably not everyone at the current level they're playing at LinkedIn today. What happens a lot is that people don't underestimate, or let's say don't estimate, what the added value is of having a premium account. There are more than 10 premium accounts out there, and people don't know which one to choose from. But what you look at is basically how can you evaluate some of the functionalities when you don't know what it is, or when you don't know, how to use them and what's going on, or why should be upgrading. So what I say is that become an active user first and a proactive user secondly, and then start looking into upgrading, because then you get the most value of what does it mean sending emails, what does it mean a saved search, what does it mean to have more search results, more premium search criteria that you can use in your advanced search. So I would say for most people at their current level, not so much, but once you get to that certain level where you're interacting on a daily basis, where you're searching, finding, connecting with people, engaging with people in groups and etc., then it might be very useful to start upgrading. And again, once you have those premium accounts, then you can automate so much more. You can start building pipelines. You can make additional notes, save people in different folders, etc., etc. So there is an added value to start upgrading. But again, maybe not for everyone today, but maybe tomorrow. Who knows?
And I get a lot of people ask me whenever I talk about LinkedIn, probably the most common question or the common objection is whether people should connect with their clients on LinkedIn. And very often it's if people are working for a large company, should I connect with my colleagues on LinkedIn? And with the clients, they tend to be scared about them being poached. With their colleagues, they tend to think, well, I'll wait until I leave. But what would you say to them? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, what I would say is it is so important to connect with your colleagues first. Again, in networking, one of the most important rules is that it's not so much about who you know, but who they know. So by being connected with your colleagues, you will find better routes to your potential customers if you're looking for new customers, or if you're hiring people to the right candidates. As a recruiter, you're not always having access to the natural, let's say, networks and natural flows of people. But if you're connected with your colleagues, then you will have, and you can ask one of your colleagues already to introduce you to one of the candidates or a potential customer. And again, it is important, as I see it, to connect with your customers as well, because they can become ambassadors. They might be ambassadors offline. Why not having them as an ambassador online? And when they spread the word, or the love, as you call it, to other potential customers, that is fantastic. And if you're connected with them, again, one of the most important values that LinkedIn has to show for is that it shows you how you're connected to other people. So when you do your research and you're connected to your customer, they might be introducing you to 2, 3, 5, maybe 10 other potential customers, and if they're a happy customer, they would be happy to introduce you actively to your next customer. So yes, my answer is definitely yes. Be connected to your customers and to your colleagues at once.
Yeah, I think that's very important to be connected there. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ivan.
No, go ahead, Terry. You finish.
Oh, I say yes, be connected on that because it's there. And also, to answer your question about LinkedIn, I work with LinkedIn. I'm using the free account right now, and I agree wholeheartedly with Bert that you want to not only be willing to pay for that, but make sure you've got the reason to and you know how to use it. That's going to be critical, that you know how to do it, you can work with it. But I think that even goes beyond other things, too. Look at life. Be willing to part with the coins so that you can get the benefit. I think Benjamin Franklin said it so well. Be willing to take the coins from your purse and pour them into your mind, and then your mind will overflow your purse with coins. Too many people in social media say, oh, I want it free. I want everything free. It's like someone saying, well, I want to become a doctor, but I don't really want to go to medical school. I just want to do it because I care for people. No, be willing to pay for those things. Put in the time, money, and effort for those things that are worthwhile to you. And if you have that mindset, whether it's working with LinkedIn, Facebook, or anything in life, you'll do a lot better.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. We're running out of time now, so what I want to do is just wrap 2 questions into one if I can, because I'm aware we haven't talked about Twitter yet, and we really should at least touch on that. People are aware of it. It's becoming more and more the thing. We've just had the IPO now, which was a great success. So Twitter's been the latest surge. Google Plus, we're starting to see more and more bloggers say Google Plus is going to wipe the floor with everyone else, but the public don't yet seem to be engaged. So my question is, should people be on Twitter if they're not, and why should they be on Twitter if they're not? If they're seeing it still as people sharing stories about getting coffee or following Justin Bieber, what can you say to persuade them? And what's next? Is it Google Plus? Is it Hangouts? Is it something completely different? Terry, do you want to start us off with that?
Yeah, I think Twitter is very important. It's got its place, and the main thing for Twitter is listening. I love the way Chris Brogan says it, grow bigger ears. You want to listen more. Listen to what people, and Twitter is a perfect place to do that. Without getting into all the topic of big data and how they crunch numbers, they can tell a lot of what's going on in the world by the number of people that are saying phrases like, anyone know where they're hiring? Or, gee, I just lost my job, or things like that. And in the aggregate, they see all of these compiled together and crunch some numbers. They can learn a lot. Twitter is way beyond just my cat is sleeping. Yes, there is still some of that, but there's a lot of serious business there that's being done. And my buddy Randy Gage, he worked with it, and he's, a matter of fact, on one of our programs, the time management for social media. And he used it. He made $2 million going from knowing nothing about Twitter to 2 years later generating $2 million that he could point directly to using Twitter. It's connecting with people. It's using the same principles, Ivan, that you have shared with us for years, and they have helped us enormously. Thank you for doing that. And those kind of principles now work in different ways with LinkedIn, with Twitter, Facebook. Those of you watching this, get to know those that are important to you. Realize this is where the world is today. You can stick your head in the sand, or you can get out there, learn about them, have fun. Come on in. Mess around with us for a while.
And what are we going to be talking about in a year's time then, Terry, and 2 or 3 years' time in the social world?
I wish I knew. If I could tell you right now, boy, I'd have a lot of money. I'd go out and do it. I do think, though, it's going to relate to people, and I do think very strongly it's going to be knowing people as human beings. Yes, keep your head attuned to Twitter. Take some courses. Bert's got some wonderful courses on LinkedIn, and if you part with a few coins to get those courses, you'll be better off. Ivan's got some great things on how to connect with people. Be willing to invest the coins and learn. Be willing to do that. And by the way, when you pay for something, you're more likely to really study it and learn it than if you get it free. That's just human nature. So I think a year from now, we're definitely going to see more with Google+. Google Plus and the Hangout is, I think, one of the best technologies we've seen, and that's coming from a guy that worked for and still loves Skype, the company and the technology, but I really like what Google Plus Hangout is doing and the capabilities that it has for us.
Excellent. Thanks, Terry. And Bert?
I think I agreed wholeheartedly with what Terry is saying, and I feel like cloud is rising up again. And again, you know, Terry has written a great book about it. Read it. But if you look at it, what's happening now already is that people are organizing parties where your cloud score helps to get you to a certain level. What you sometimes see is that when you have a cloud score of 30, or let's say between 30 and 40, you'll get regular drinks. If you go between 40 and 50, you get cocktails. If you go between 50 and 60, people are giving you full meals. If you between 60 and 70, people will pick you up with a limo from your home and drop you back home. If you're over 80, you'll get a suite at a hotel, so you don't have to go home anymore. So these are the things that I feel like cloud is on the rise. But again, everything that's out there, don't be overwhelmed with everything. Go with it step by step. Choose again from your goal. Have your goal in mind. What is it that you want to achieve? Choose the right platforms there. Be informed. Talk to other people how they are using it. Learn from their mistakes so you get ahead faster, and also share your knowledge with others. By sharing, you will receive a lot more help with others, from others, to help you achieve faster as well. And again, that's the way forward. Social media is about being social. Yes, it is about big business, but also about sharing your knowledge with others.
Well, listen, I think that's about all we have time for in this edition of the Global Networking Show. I want to thank both Terry and Bert for joining us. This has been a very interesting show. You know, me as a guy that's all about face-to-face networking, I love social networking and social media. I think it's, like I said earlier, not either or, both and I think you both had some great content to help our listeners build their business on social media. Andy?
Yeah, well, thank you both to Terry and to Bert. I think it's been a fascinating show. I knew it would be. I think we could have gone for 2, 3, 4 hours. The fact we didn't get to Twitter to the last few minutes, and even touch on Google Plus, really does say a lot. So we'll be revisiting this subject, no doubt, in more than one show coming up. Next month, it's a change of tact. We're going to be looking at networking in a corporate environment. We've got Suzanne Rowan, who's a phenomenal author and speaker on networking, who started out talking about networking in corporates, who's going to join us, along with someone who's in a corporate environment at the moment, and we'll be confirming those details in the next few days, along with the date. We're just getting everything together at the moment. In the meantime, don't forget you can revisit this discussion on Google+, YouTube, and you can subscribe to the Global Networking Show podcast on iTunes and get the podcast version, the audio version, to listen to on the go without looking at these wonderful faces straight through to your iPhone or your other device. And of course, please also, we're talking about social networking. Please sign up to the Global Networking Show on Facebook, on Twitter, on Google+, and share it. Tell other people about it. Please share the show for us. Raise our clout score, and just help us spread the word. And we've got the
take a look at our new website, globalnetworkingshow.com.
When you can also post questions, post comments about the show, and Ivan and I always look at the questions afterwards and try and answer them when we can. Terry and Bert, I'd like to extend the invitation to you as well, if that's okay. Please check the site. We'll let you know if there are any questions specifically for you. But if you have any questions, let us know. Let's keep the conversation going. We hope to see you next month on the Global Networking Show. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.